Diane, I'm listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life.
All right, welcome back to Black Lodge Trivia Night. We are once again down a Matt and a Patrick. They are throwing out the first pitch at the San Diego Padres home opener. I like baseball. I like emasculating myself in front of a large crowd by throwing a first pitch that's wildly outside and also takes 3 hops to reach home plate. But alas, I was not asked. Also, quick shout out to the Hamilton Continentals men's ice hockey team for their Division III national championship over the Hobart Statesmen. Hamilton was the David slaying the Hobart Goliath in an exciting overtime win. Go Continentals. All right, so those things out of the way. Things are still very real. So again, I wasn't able to prep a hostile. What goes into prepping a hostile solo session? What do I mean when I say that? Given the amount of time that exists between the sessions, it involves listening back, taking some notes, and then sort of thinking about, what might happen. I let the tables determine things on the fly, but I like to sort of, got a little hat head, who cares? Anyway. But I do like to sort of think about like what's been going on between the characters, and so it does involve a little bit of sort of mental prep to get ready for it. And things are still real with leaky ceilings and all the things going on with Matt and Patrick. The good news is, hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the last one we're going to have to patch together, hopefully for a little bit. But I've threatened to do this. It's super dumb, but tonight I'm going to announce my top 5 RPG dice. There's going to be some other categories. For instance, the one we're going to start with is my trollish clickbait, most overrated.
Most overrated.
That's right. I've said it before, and when I said it, Matt just flat out said, fuck off, which is why it's a fun one for me to say, but for me, that's going to be the Alien RPG stress die. I think that's one of the more overrated dice. And again, I know it's because it gets a lot of people to say, fuck you. The stress die always never sat right. Let me just put it that way, because I thought it was weird that it made you better at something until it broke you. It felt like it was you're great, you're getting better, and then you roll the outcome that then turns you into a gibbering mess. I think, and this is all in the original edition now, I think it does a lot of interesting things. It does, it adds like a push your luck mechanic. It does a lot of things mechanically, but like a Euro board game, it then tries to clumsily apply a theme that doesn't necessarily fit for something that was designed well for effect, if you know what I mean. So that's why I always sort of think about like, the stress die. Like, I like it, and again, it's not that I think it's bad. I just think that it's that disconnect for me with the narrative and the mechanical. And it's, and it's meant to be sort of a big centerpiece, and stress, sanity, it's something that so many games don't get right? Like it seems to be like the goal, the grail that we're all chasing, finding, and it's one of the things I mentioned in my last video, the Delta Green, stress. I really like how that works. Sorry, about to cough right there in the mic. Now I will say the stress mechanics get a reworking in the Evolved edition that came out a little while ago. And, I read through it and it's sort of, I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I've never actually played the Evolved edition, so I don't know. But it sort of introduces like there's panic rolls, but then there's also combat panic rolls, and panic rolls only happen when like a xenomorph occurs. Like there's a lot more nuance and a lot more texture to it. But I'm not sure, judging from what I was reading online, and of course, what does that even mean? Some people like it. Some people think it overly complicates things. I don't know if it's trying to bubblegum and duct tape patches onto something that, they feel really needs to be there, but they still haven't figured it out yet. I can't say. Or maybe they nailed it. I like the idea that it might have more nuance. Like some of the panic rolls in combat, like your stress can go up, like if you like fire a full clip. If somebody next to you, like there's a lot of good reasons why like you would start to ratchet up the tension. For me, it's always going to be the issue though of, but why am I getting better? But, maybe that's, toned down a little bit, anyway, so there you go. Honorable mention. The most overrated alien stress die. Now, let's jump to an honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
So for the honorable mention, I'm going to go with a D6. The D6 has been around for probably thousands of years at this point. It's an old reliable. Pair them up with another D6 or a couple of D6s, you start getting those sweet, sweet bell curves. And it can be used in just about any situation. I don't find it terribly interesting. And, I think, it's sort of, yeah, sure. It feels very limited in its potential results. Gets a little better when you start pairing it up with the dice, with other D6s, but yeah, and it's probably one of the most prevalent dice in gaming, like board games, war games. It's all over. It's a classic. Doesn't make my top 5, but I feel like that's why it deserves an honorable mention. It's just such a workhorse that can do a lot of different things. But I don't find it terribly exciting. So there's the honorable mention. Now we're going to get to one that's a little mean, but the worst.
Just the worst.
All right. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this D100 singular die, I think, is the worst fucking thing in the world. As you can see from the picture, it was shaped kind of like a ball. Have you ever tried to roll a ball? Yeah, it takes a little while. Yeah, it takes a little while. You're sitting there waiting for it to land on its number like it's the DiCaprio's top at the end of Inception, right? And you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, is it gonna, okay. And it just rolls and rolls and rolls. And then when it finally stops, you're like, I don't know what the fuck number it is. Is it this one? Is that the one that's the most flat? Or is it this one that's the most flat? I don't know. Now, granted, like that's if it actually stayed on the table in the first place. So you might be re-rolling it 2 or 3 times just to, and you got to sort of gently kind of, like you're kind of trying to like, like you're just trying to, like in curling, you're trying to get the right touch so it stops in, somewhere in the vicinity of where you want it to land. So it's kind of like, that's kind of like rolling this die. And it's a stupid experience, and I don't like it, and I think it's the worst. Runner-up in this category is the D4. I think this should get a special mention because the roll feel on a D4 is just the most, fuck you, I'm not even going to try. It's just like you roll and it just kind of flops dead like a fish landing on a table. So it's just kind of like the most deflating rolling experience I can imagine with rolling a die. And then it's only 4 possibilities. And then sometimes the number is at the top of the pyramid. Sometimes it's on the flat. So they haven't even established a comment, whatever. Anyway, runner up in that category is the D4. And then if you step on it, forget it. If it's on the floor and you step on it, yeah, forget it. Anyway, so there we go. So there we've got the categories out of the way. Now we're going to get into the top 5 RPG dice.
Number 5.
All right. So at number 5, we're going to go with the D20. Now, the D20 is not my particularly favorite dice system for RPGs. I mentioned in the last video that, a D20 RPG fantasy system is not necessarily what I'm in the market for, but I think it's hard to get around the D20 and what it means to RPGs. Is it just because Gary Gygax picked it when he was coming up with the original Dungeons and Dragons? Maybe. And that reason is as good as any, right? But it's gotten to the point where like people who play RPGs, you know, D&D equals playing RPGs for a lot of people. And D20s are at the heart of it. When people are trying to get, I've seen a lot of things like, hey, as a GM, I'm getting a little bored running D&D. How do I get my players away from it? And a lot of the times people are suggesting like, you should try this system or you should try that system. And a lot of the times the systems that they're suggesting are also D20 based. And the reason why is because it's just so ubiquitous because of D&D's popularity and the history of that game that it's that important to the players jumping systems that you just keep the same die. It also, at its heart, it's a simpler percentile system, right? And so it has chance chunks that are too big, right? Like, every step is a 5% chance. Maybe that's not nuanced enough, but it sort of does that. It's just a die that when people picture rolling an RPG die, I think they picture rolling a D20. And I think because of that, you have to give the D20 credit where credit's due. And so that's why the number 5 RPG die is the D20. Let's keep going.
Number 4.
Okay, coming in at number 4 is the percentile dice. Now, I know I just took a giant shit on an actual D100 die, but that doesn't mean the idea is a bad one. Percentile dice, my favorite way to do it is just take 2 D10s. One's the tens place, one's the ones place, and go. Sometimes you can even get a D10 that has tens on it. It's like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, instead of just a singular number. Even better. The reason why I like percentile dice is because on a lot of levels, most skill checks in RPGs are trying to determine what are the chances of something happening. And the simplest way to answer that question is with the simplest way, I think, and in the most recognizable way for a lot of people is just that it's a 40% chance. Easiest way to get to a 40% chance is just roll percentile dice. In my mind, the percentile dice, that percentile chance is basically the heart of most skill check systems. And even whether you're rolling like 2d6, like in a Traveler, because it's not usually so important what the actual result of the roll is, whether it's a 7 or a 9 or a 12 or a 2, the bell curve isn't the point of a 2d6 roll. It's to the left of the bell curve, where your skill and to the left. So that becomes then a percentile chance. Now, and I think I mentioned this before, and I think this is a pretty well-known statistic. Human beings are actually not great at gauging a percentile chance. Like if something's 86% likely to happen, most people think like, oh, that's almost a sure thing, right? I think so. I think people are bad at actually understanding what that percentage chance means. But that doesn't change the fact that it's clear. It can be nuanced. It can, if we're being honest, it can actually overdo the math a little bit. If you're like, okay, now I need to subtract 21 from this and 15 for that. Some of the systems, I will say, some of the systems that use a percentile chance, like one of my favorites, Mithras, Call of Cthulhu does this, is a lot of times systems from that lineage will determine critical successes by like dividing your stat by 5, dividing it by 10, things like that. So sometimes it's just, or half 5, whatever it is. But sometimes it's just like, okay, now we're getting into like the chance of me getting a critical success is 7. You're just like, okay, I feel like this could be cleaner. But that doesn't change the fact that I feel like it gives nuance. It's a readily understandable percentage that then our brains are bad at interpreting. But I think it's very clear, and I think it really is the heart of what most skill checks are trying to accomplish. And so why not just go with what it is instead of fancying it up with, all this other stuff. So there we go. Number 4, percentile dice. Let's keep going.
Number 3.
All right. So coming in at number 3 is the hidden GM dice. And now you're going to start to realize that this isn't quite literally dice. And then you're going to give me the double middle fingers and say you cheated, and that's fine. But for number 3, I'm going to go with hidden GM dice. And the reason why is, regardless of the system, and this is something that is, I think, better suited to being at the table, but there have been times when it's worked well in a VTT. And, you're sitting there as a player, you're in the thing, you're doing this, you're talking with the other players like, oh, what are we going to do? Are we going to go explore this cavern? Do you want to cross the bridge? Do you want to try and sneak around and check the door for traps? And then all of a sudden, you hear the thud of the dice behind the GM screen. And like prey suddenly realizing they might be in the sights of a predator, you snap. And you're like, what was that? Oh, shit. You immediately, your ass clenches up. You just, stress starts to elevate. And you are like, oh, shit. I think it even happened once during our, what was it? Blade Runner thing. I did like a sort of a hidden GM roll, and Matt in literal mid-sentence was just like, so then what I'm going to do is then, oh, what the fuck was that? It's that reaction that is so good and so, in my mind, captures what's one of the great things about RPGs. Like just, you're going from, spitballing the story, trying to figure things out, to immediately like things are about to get serious. And then it could be like nothing happens. And it's the rising tension of a horror movie for the quick, incredibly stupid jump scare of a cat in the cereal cabinet. And then you're like, oh, and you get that, I'm going to take another shit on Aliens. I said it. The movie. It's you, and you just sort of have that sort of moment of relaxation after that quick burst of tension. It's just such a good addition to an RPG session where all of a sudden you're suddenly on edge. You don't know what's happening, and it makes things exciting. So, yeah, I think for number 3, I'm going to go with the hidden GM dice, just for the uncertainty it brings and the rising tension, and just the players all going like, oh shit, what's coming? And I think that's a great moment that RPGs accomplish at the table. Or, again, it kind of works in a... the reason why I think it works better at the table is because on the VTT, at least in Foundry, I think what it does is it might show like a ghost die. Like it won't show you what the numbers are. It'll just show you that it's rolling if you're using the 3D dice. I forget the 3D dice, is whatever the module is. If you don't do that, it might just suddenly pop up with a little chat box with double question marks or something like that. It's not with the roll sound. But at the table, it's just the noise. It's like in the movie Jaws, the first time you hear da-da, da-da, you're not necessarily seeing anything that's terrifying, but just suddenly you hear something that instantly tells your lizard brain fight or flight, like something's about to happen and you need to tighten up and get ready. So yeah, anyway, there you go. Number 3, GM hidden dice. All right, let's keep going.
Number 2.
All right, so for the number 2 RPG dice, I'm going to go with the ascending, descending sort of step dice. My first encounter with this was with Free League Year Zero systems. I think the first time I encountered it was with Forbidden Lands. Now, I'm not saying this is where it first happened. I'm sure it's been around for longer than that. But I remember playing Forbidden Lands and reading through the rules to get ready for it and seeing the step dice, like I think it was tracking, I don't know if it was torches or food and water or ammo. It was ammo. That's what it was. It was ammo because like in other RPGs I play, like I have 21 arrows. I fire one. I'm down to 20. I fire one. I'm down to 19. And that part of the RPG character sheet gets worn through from erasing it so much. And it's the type of minutia that on some level you want to track, right? Like it's not like I want to have unlimited arrows and have it be that kind of game. I want it to have enough of that kind of grit and realism to be able to like, oh shit, I'm out. But I'll be honest with you, like tracking arrow after arrow with every single shot, especially in the middle of a heated combat where things are really exciting and you're having a great time, to be suddenly, excuse me, did you subtract one arrow from your inventory? It's just tedious. So if you can, and maybe rolling the die is not that different time-wise than just erasing and subtracting one arrow, but it just feels more like a game. And so I probably should explain how it works. So like in Forbidden Lands, what happens is say you have like a D12 for your ammo. That means you have the highest amount of ammo you can have. Every time you shoot an arrow, you roll. If you get like a 1 or a 2, that D12 becomes a D10, right? Now you're more likely to get a 1 or a 2. And then when you do, that D10 steps down to a D8. Other games use it in different ways. I think in Savage Worlds, your stats are like a D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. So you can sort of have like these ascending dice as your stats improve. And so again, even though it might, and you're trying to beat a 4 in Savage Worlds, in certain Year Zero engine games, I think specifically like Twilight 2000, what you'll do is you'll have, your skill will be like a D8, your stat will be a D6. So those will be the 2 dice you're rolling. And then you might have like a -2 modifier. And the -2 modifier will take your highest die from a D8 and you'll subtract 2 from it, making it a D6, D4. So maybe it's a little complicated, but then, so it's just like, in my mind, it's just like a really fun, maybe a little busy way to do whatever it is you're trying to do. It lets you pull all the dice out of your dice pool, which is fun. Like in D&D, you're rolling D6. Like most of the time you're rolling a D20, right? And all your other dice are sitting there like, what am I doing here? I have shit to do, right? And then every once in a while you pull it out to roll for damage or something, whatever. But, this gets all the dice, in your probably giant dice bag into the mix a lot quicker. And all in all, in my mind, I just feel like it's really fun. And when you're using it to say track resources, I think it's really clean while still getting the point across, which is what I was so impressed by. Like, I thought, that way to track things was really, really clever. So whoever came up with that system, I thank you, sir or ma'am, because I think it's a great addition to RPGs. And I think it takes care of busy work in a fun way that adds some tension and yet doesn't get too burdensome or too like take you out of the moment to do some accounting. So number 2 is going to be the ascending, descending step dice, which brings us to
Number 1.
Here we are. The number 1 die for me in RPGs. Number 1 dice die. For me, it's going to be exploding dice. So, exploding dice, some people don't like it because, like, one of the first time I really encountered it, that's not true. I was about to say the first time I really encountered it was in Savage Worlds. That's actually not true. I'll go back to that in a minute. It's a big part of Savage Worlds, and it's very sort of easy to have your dice explode in Savage Worlds, which is probably why so many people associate the idea of exploding dice with Savage Worlds. And because it's relatively easy-ish to have your dice explode, it can make the game feel very swingy. And so then people are like, well, I don't want a swingy game. So therefore I don't want exploding dice. And I think that's an association that doesn't necessarily have to be true, right? Exploding dice aren't inherently non-gritty. You can have, I think in my mind, a gritty RPG system that still incorporates exploding dice, because in real life, weird shit can happen. You just have to, going back to the percentile, you just have to tweak how often it happens, right? In Savage Worlds, it's very willing to let the dice explode. But it doesn't, you don't have to have your system to do that. And I sort of skipped why it's my number one, is because when your dice explode, it's the most fuck yeah feeling you can have at the table. And if that's not what we're going for in our games, then I don't know what is. Even in like a tense investigative horror game, you're just about to have the evil big bad grab you on the shoulder, and because of some miraculous dice roll, you just slip underneath and manage to get away. It's not like you just cleave the thing in half with a mega hit. But it took extraordinary circumstances for you to survive another day, and you're just like, fuck yeah. And I mean, again, I can't stress that, that's what we're all going for. As a GM, I want my players to be curious and stuff like that. But when I see that kind of moment happen, I know that they are having a good time and that they are enjoying that moment in the story. And that's really what being a GM and playing role-playing games is all about. You're trying to collaboratively come up with that scenario, that story, and have everybody going, that was fantastic. And an exploding die roll can really contribute to that. So, but it doesn't just have to be, a mega super hit. The first time I actually encountered exploding dice was, now again, I'm not saying this is the system that invented it, it's just the first time that I encountered it was Iron Crown Enterprises Middle Earth Role Playing, which means it's also part of Rollmaster from Iron Crown Enterprises. And what I loved about their system is that it can go in both directions. So if you were to roll, I think it was it's a D100 percentile system. And I think if you were to roll a 96, 7, 8, 9, or 100, so the top 5%, your dice exploded upwards. And so then you would roll again. And if you rolled another 96, 97, 98, 900, you'd roll again. So the chances of it happening are not great, right? It's a 5% chance of it actually happening in the first place. So it's another 5% chance of it exploding after that. But then you start to multiply that. And so then it does become, I don't know, a 0.25. Don't ask me to do the math live on camera. It'll be embarrassing for us all. But it makes the chance go down, right? Because if you just roll a 97 and then roll a 15, your dice don't explode. So it wasn't super likely to happen. And that's what I mean. You could apply that to your system to make it grittier, right? You can just, change how often it actually happens. And honestly, rolling a 96, even that first, oh shit, it might happen, is a little bit of that fuck yeah. And then you're like, so it's got the rising, emotional roller coaster of success, but then not getting it, or success and then really getting it, but if you were to roll a 5 or below, was it a 5 or below? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd pick up the dice and roll it again. But this time you're going to go down. In Middle Earth, what happened was you would roll a 96, and then whatever you rolled on your second one, you would add to it. But if you rolled another 96, you could keep adding to it. So that was sort of how it worked. In this one, if you rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you roll the dice again, and whatever you roll, you subtract from it. So it's going down into negative territory, most likely. If you roll a 96, 97, 98, 99, it's a little confusing in that case. You're going to roll again in the negative. So you roll super low. Oh shit, here we go. You roll again. If you roll super high, you're really going down the toilet. And and in a way, that's a different kind of that's just like, oh shit, instead of the fuck yeah, it's the oh shit. And, Middle Earth Role Playing and Rollmaster, they had some pretty funny tables, and it might be a little cumbersome in this scenario, but in general, exploding dice don't have to be cumbersome. And they create just moments for your players where they get to be excited. You get to be a fan of your player. Because I'll tell you, as a GM, when my players roll an exploding die, I'm like, fuck yeah. And I just think that's such a good moment at the table for you, for your players, that it's hard to imagine a better moment. Like it's sort of like the pinnacle of what we're trying to achieve at the table. That sort of that bond where everybody's excited for what just happened, And in this particular case, it is done with dice, and that's why the exploding dice are my number one RPG dice. So there you have it. A little quick video this week. Again, we're hoping to be back into the rotation very soon. We'll see how it goes. But the plan is we're going to try and record something with the whole team this week, and we'll see how that goes. But so yeah, I've threatened this for a while. I finally put it together. I think I explained it to Matt, and he's like, "That's just too dumb for me." And I'm like, "I know, it's super dumb." But it was something that I had thought about and was a list I had come up with. And I also thought it was dumb, but I thought it was funny, but mostly dumb. So thanks to everybody who checked this out. We obviously appreciate it. We are a tabletop RPG actual play podcast, believe it or not. And we have a Discord if you want to jump in and talk about RPGs, CRPGs. We have audio versions of most of the things we do. If you want to search for Black Lodge Trivia Night, wherever you get your podcasts, we should show up. What else? Yeah, what do we got going on? In the rotation, we're currently about to start. We did a session 0 for Matt's Pathfinder Season of Ghosts. So hopefully we're going to start the first session of that and get it going. Really excited to see where I've just heard great things about that adventure path. So I'm really excited to get into it. On the CRPG front, Lord of the Rings Online, Book Quest continue. Skyrim, I did a little Crimson Desert. I'm not going to do like an official Let's Play part 397 of Crimson. That game is so big. It's so big. But I did do a couple of sessions of like, hey, here's something I've been really curious about. I'm just going to go in completely cold and see what happens. And for all the mess and all the exhilaration that comes with it. So anyway, again, yeah, thank you to everybody who checks this out. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Go, subscribe to the audio version if you prefer that. We really appreciate everybody who's stuck around for this stuff. So thanks again. Take care.